Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 11:11 a.m. Fireside Chat with your astronomy, Richfield Stars Astronomy update. Thank you so much for joining myself, and let me welcome Ms. Margaret Riggs joining me again today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
It is always a pleasure to welcome you for the astronomy update. And we are going to get into some very interesting facts about Easter and other wonderful information that Margaret will be sharing with us. And we welcome our guests here in the chapel as well who are joining us from the Astronomy Club as well. Thank you all so much for joining us. I am Vickie Meeks-Miller, your Community Engagement Manager. And I'm going to have Margaret jump right in with some interesting facts and what we can look for in the skies upcoming.
Thank you, Vickie.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to share with you what you may see in the night sky if you're so inclined. Again, most of the action in March occurs during the morning. Mm-hmm. So if you walk the dog early or just are so inclined to be up, this is what you might see. Venus and Mars continue to be the morning stars. They appear in the southeast. Again, Venus is much easier to recognize, and you can find Mars by zeroing in on Venus first. Mars appears below and to the west of Venus. Now, this is for the whole month. So if you find Venus, look below it and to the west. Mars, remember, is much dimmer and has a slightly reddish tint to it. After March the 20th, Saturn appears on the scene. It will be seen low in the southeast about 40 minutes before sunrise. Now, some dates to remember. On March 20th, that's the Vernal Equinox. That's when the sun is over the equator, and the length of day and night are the same.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
We'll talk more about this later.
Okay.
On March 25th, Venus, Saturn, and Mars form a triangle. Mm-hmm. Now, Venus is at the apex, at the top. Mars will be below and to the right.
Okay.
And Saturn is below Mars and to its left. They form what is referred to as a squashed isosceles triangle. If you remember, in an isosceles triangle, two of the sides are equal. So the distance between Saturn and Mars is the long side. And from Venus to Saturn and Venus to Mars would be two equal sides.
Okay.
They are fairly close together, so this is why it's referred to as squashed. On March the 27th, Venus will be to the east of the crescent moon. And this will occur about 60 minutes before sunrise. Next night, on March the 28th, Venus will be above the moon, and Saturn can be in between the two of them. So you get a chance. Now, Saturn will be very faint, mostly because it's so very far away.
Okay.
But this will give you a chance to pinpoint what it looks like, how bright it is, if you haven't seen it beforehand.
Okay.
Now, I'm going to skip over to April just for a minute because there's a couple of occurrences that will occur before our next broadcast. On April 4th, about 6 a.m. Again, we're in the morning. Saturn and Mars will be very, very close together, and I'm talking almost looking like they're touching, which of course they aren't. Mars will be to the right of Saturn. The next morning, on April 5th, Mars will be below and slightly to the left of Saturn. Now, this phenomenon, where they're so close together, can best be viewed with binoculars.
Okay.
And you can get an up-close, much closer view of Saturn and Mars. And remember, Mars has the reddest tint. One other thing that you can observe in the night sky now doesn't deal with the planets. It deals with several stars. This is called the winter triangle. Now, to find the winter triangle, you want to face south and look up. Look for the 3 stars that form Orion's Belt. There are 3 stars that appear very close together and are in a straight line. Now, I'm going to have Vickie help me illustrate this because I don't have enough hands. Okay, the microphone itself is going to represent the 3 stars of Orion's Belt. They're at an angle. So to find the winter triangle, you start with the middle star in Orion's Belt and go straight up. Not very far, you will come to a very bright star. This is Betelgeuse. Come straight across, and you will come to another very bright star, which is Procyon. And if you go down to form the bottom part of the triangle to the next bright star, that will be Sirius. Remember Sirius, the dog star? So Orion's Belt has nothing to do with the winter triangle. It's your reference point. It's where you go. Everybody can find Orion's Belt. And then look for the 3 stars close together in a straight line. From the middle one, go straight up. You'll get to Betelgeuse.
I love that name, Betelgeuse. Say it 3 times.
Fast. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Yes.
Come straight over from Betelgeuse and you come to Procyon, and then go down for the triangle and hit Sirius. It's very, very prominent. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to see. I've checked it out several evenings. You don't have to get up early or stay up late to see it. It's up there. And I haven't viewed it from the campus. I was not far, but I don't think there's enough light to wash out the brightness of the stars.
Good.
And as far as fun fact, the star Betelgeuse, you all may remember the spelling of it from a movie called Beetlejuice.
Right.
Sometimes that's the way it's pronounced.
Mm-hmm. I wondered if there was an association with Beetlejuice.
Yes, there is.
Uh-huh.
I mentioned earlier, too, that we would come back to the vernal equinox. Now, it's the harbinger of spring. The days start getting longer. Hopefully, the days start getting warmer. Mm-hmm. People think about planting. Flowers are up. I've got some blooming around my cottage right now. And besides the coming of spring, the vernal equinox also determines when Easter is celebrated. We're in the season of Lent right now, coming up to Easter. All right. 3 parts to it. After the vernal equinox, which occurs, I believe, on, well, what I said is March the 20th, there will be a full moon. Now, vernal equinox always happens about the same time in the spring. The full moon doesn't.
Right.
So after the vernal equinox, you look for the first full moon. And then the first Easter after that full moon occurs is Easter Sunday.
So the first Sunday after the full moon?
The first Sunday after the first full moon after the equinox.
Right. Okay. I often wondered why Easter is on different dates.
Yeah.
And that explains that and answers that question.
If you have a full moon right below the vernal equinox, Easter's going to be late. It's going to be almost a month later.
Wow.
If you have a full moon right after the vernal equinox, Easter will be early. And I think, not too distant past, Easter occurred like in March.
It did.
So there was a full moon right on the heels of the equinox.
Right.
Okay, after this broadcast is over, the Astronomy Club will meet in Roost 52. Go to the Answer Cafe, pick up lunch, and bring it up at noon. And we'll watch a video that reviews the life of Stephen Hawking, one of the premier theoretical physicists of our time. So we'll look forward to seeing you in the Roost at noon. Thank you.
Yes, and that is a very interesting life that Mr. Hawking led. So that will be a wonderful presentation, very interesting material to cover. And speaking of the full moon, March's full moon is referred to as the worm moon, and it arrives on Friday, March the 18th at 3:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And so it is a spectacularly bright moon as it rises above the horizon that evening. It's called the worm moon, and that is the name used by the Old Farmer's Almanac, and it comes from a number of places, such as most of the names they come from the Native American, as well as the colonial American and European sources. And traditionally, the worm moon refers to the earthworms that appear as the soil is warming in the spring. This invites robins and other birds to feed. So that is a true sign of spring. Now, of course, the daylight savings time, that will begin on this Sunday, the 13th. So the worm moon will be appearing the Friday thereafter. So there are other references for the full moon as well, the sugar moon, and that marks the time of the year in which the sap of sugar maple starts to flow. It is also referred to as the wind-strong moon, which is Pueblo, and that refers to the strong wind that is very common during the month of March. The sore eyes moon highlights the blinding rays of the sunlight that reflect off of the melting snow during the late winter as well. And then finally, the Pascal full moon, that plays a role in religion. And then the Lenten moon is another reference for the last full moon of the winter season. So The full moon of March has lots of names and for lots of reasons. So wonderful. It was very interesting to learn about how astronomy does play a part in dictating the date of Easter and Palm Sunday. So that was interesting to know. Again, I had always wondered, why is it sometimes in March, sometimes in April, late April, early April? So that really does answer that question. Thank you so much, Margaret, for sharing that information. And of course, be sure to join the Richfield Stars for their meeting once again, 12 noon in the Roos 52. As Margaret said, grab your lunch, come on up, and learn about the most interesting life of Stephen Hawking. Thank you so much, Margaret, for sharing all of this information and for being our guest once again on this first Wednesday of the month, and second Wednesday of the month. This month is flying by. And it started, the way it starts makes it feel like it's the first, but it's actually the second Wednesday of the month, and every second Wednesday is when we have our Richfield Stars Astronomy Update. So thank you all so much for joining us for that. Now from our Jar of Awesomeness, on this Barbie Day, which is the birthday of Barbie, and in this month of women's history, I guess we can include Barbie as a famous woman who has been a trailblazer, if you will. So on March 9th of 1959, Barbie made her debut at the American International Toy Fair in New York City. This date became known as Barbie's birthday and is now celebrated as Barbie Day. Barbie was thought up by Ruth Handler, who was one of the Mattel Company's founders' wives, Elliot Handler. She created the Barbie doll and launched it as an American, and it became an American icon. Barbie's full name is Barbara Millicent Roberts. I never knew that. Who knew that Barbie had a legal name? And she came with an array of accessories. Of course, Barbie is controversial. There are detractors that criticize Barbie for being an unattainable ideal of a woman. And so she has evolved over time and has represented so many milestones in the history of women and pioneering women. But she is a modern positive role model in business, science, education, and much more. Then in 1961, Mattel introduced Ken Carson as Barbie's boyfriend, and thereafter followed many other friends, such as the Skipper doll. Barbie was inducted in the Toy Hall of Fame in 1998, and there is so much history on Barbie. I could go on for a few more hours of Barbie history. So be sure to Google Barbie's birthday and learn all about it. Now, I do leave you with a quote from Miss Blair Willows, who is a Barbie Princess Charm School owner. And the quote states, "No one can make you feel inferior, not without your consent." So that's something, a quote to live by. So therefore, we will continue to celebrate women during Women's History Month, this month of March, and we will celebrate Barbie on her birthday today. We certainly do thank you all for joining us for the broadcast today. We look forward to joining you next week on Monday for a community engagement update. And don't forget to turn your clocks back or to spring forward. No, we're springing forward. Fall back, spring forward. So we're going to turn our clocks up on Saturday night before you go to bed so that you'll be all set for daylight savings time starting on Sunday the 13th. Thank you all so much for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful day, a wonderful rest of the week, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.